Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, thank you guys for tuning in. We are in what would normally I would say the lab. If any of you have used to watch the lab with Coach Clee, we go through the whole spiel, we go through the whole monologue and have fun. However, we've transitioned. I've been saying for a long time that we had new things coming down the pipeline, and here it is. This is it. We are four shows deep now with our new platform, Black and Blue. We discuss law enforcement. We discuss it from either someone who is very new in the arena. We discuss it from a seasoned officer, and we also discuss it from retirees. And today, we're not only are we celebrating African American, minority, black, whatever word you want to fill in the blank for it, law enforcement officers. Also, we're celebrating Women's History Month. So we got a double whammy today. We're going to have a good show. We're going to have a lot of fun. If you haven't already subscribed to the page, make sure you do so. We're on Facebook under Black and Blue. We are also on LinkedIn. And we are streaming live right now on YouTube under Black and Blue. So if you haven't, make sure you tag, like, and share. You subscribe to those pages because we have a lot of fun. We share a lot of good information, and this is necessary. It's necessary for growth because we learn a lot of things here too. And this is your chance to interact with people who actually live in the field, who work in the field, and who have experienced certain things which may be good and which may be not so good. Bad per se, and you can ask whatever legitimate question that you want. Okay, we're going to keep it respectful, and we're going to have a lot of fun. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for transitioning again. I got a special guest in here today. I've known her since at least for a year, for maybe 10 years or more now. Ironically, we've worked together formally. We have a wonderful friendship. Our kids know each other. We've had a great many good memories throughout the years on some wonderful things. I can't say enough about her. She's backstage right now. You see the name right there. Yes, it is Dr. Francia Done-Henry, and I met her early in my career with the department that I'm with, but I learned about her also. She is a military. She was in the military. She was in the Army. She currently performing a career in law enforcement, still in that arena there. She is a diversity and community engagement leader. I'm stumbling. I'm sorry. She shows wonderful leadership skills throughout the course of her careers and past experiences and current experiences. She's a linguist. She's also a professor, or she used to be, correct me if I'm wrong. When she gets on here, she's going to go through a whole laundry list of things that I can't say, but she was a professor at the academy. She's a retired lieutenant. She's currently deputy chief, and she has her own consulting business, and I will let her engage in everything I'm getting tongue-tied over because I know the list can go on and on. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to bring to the stage, I want to introduce to you Dr. Francia Done-Henry. Francia, are you here?
I am. Thank you so much for that very exciting, energetic introduction.
Thank you. Absolutely. And thank you for coming on the show. Okay, I know I went through some things and I probably fumbled it up so many times, but can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure, certainly. Well, you covered a lot of it. I was in the Army, which is where I got a start in my career. I was in the Army Reserves, and I then moved on to several different careers after that. Then I transitioned to a job, just working 9 to 5 in corporate America. And then eventually I transitioned into law enforcement full time. So I worked for 15 years in a very good department and had great experiences and worked my way up through the ranks there, becoming a patrol commander, a lieutenant, retired a few years ago. And I also teach. I'm an adjunct professor at a few colleges and universities. And I have my own consulting business where I focus on organizational leadership development, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and law enforcement. So I stay busy. And my most important job of all is being a mom. I have 2 amazing human beings that I'm trying to raise, and hopefully they're decent people when I'm done with them. So that's me in a nutshell.
I'm pretty sure they're going to be wonderful, amazing people when you're done with them. I think we all know that. And that leads me into, we'll start the interview here. How did you actually get into law enforcement? What did you want to be when you were a child and you grew up? Did you actually want to grow up to be a police officer?
Yeah, well, I mean, I I wanted to be a police officer when I was younger, but I was always told no because I was told well, you're a girl and that's too dangerous. Like, don't you want to be a lawyer or, do something else? How about a paralegal? Like, that's
Mhm.
safe. And my some of my family members kind of try to sway me away and get me to do other jobs that weren't as dangerous. But when I joined the army, I was 17 and I became a military police officer.
Mm.
So that's really where my law enforcement career started. And when I joined the department that I joined, I didn't know much about law enforcement. I didn't know about taking tests. I never talked to anybody that could
Mhm.
like tell me what to expect or where to apply. I just kind of read some materials, some articles, and I just filled out an application, and the rest is history.
Okay. All right. And so I know you spoke on two people that you're raising, and I know you've engaged with the community often and different platforms that you've worked throughout the course of this career, through diversity, inclusion, and equity, and also with local schools. What do you believe, or what do you know, or how do you feel that either your children or kids that you dealt with, how do you think they look at you and feel about you?
Yeah. Well, my kids know that I'm very passionate about character building and the
Okay.
way they carry themselves. And I really stress upon them that they have to be respectful, not just to other people, but to themselves. I always challenge
Mhm.
them to think about, what would they see themselves doing in whatever decision they make? Is it a good decision? Is it something that's going to be beneficial for them? Or is it something that's helping others? And what's the consequence, right?
Mhm.
We look at consequences as being bad most of the time, but I tell them there's good consequences. If you make good decisions, if you do what you're supposed to do, there's a positive consequence to that, right? The
Right. Mhm.
consequence is what's happening at the end. So I encourage my children to do what's right. And I tell them I can try to force you to do something, but only you make that decision at the end of the day. I'll give you guidance, I'll tell you what I think you should do, but I don't control what you do once you leave the house, right?
Mhm.
So I have faith in that fact that maybe they'll make the right decision. And in my engagement with the community, I've always wanted to do something where I can help people, where I can help them understand the realm of everything that's affecting them in a
Mhm.
way that's more informative for them in the long run, so they can make better decisions if I maybe tell them about what's going on or what's happening. And I just always wanted to help people. So that's
Mhm.
what really drives me in making all those connections.
Gotcha. And having the attitude of service and wanting to help people is necessary in this field. Trust me, because it's not always easy to actually get up and help people. Because normally, the stigma goes out there. We see people at their worst. Not That's not always true, but most times when we're engaged in dealing with the public, we see a lot of the public at they're at a low point in their life, or a low point at the time of the day, if something, of course, negative happened to them, and we come in and intervene, and most times are not. I know, just from experience, that we've all had seen, dealt with things like that. How do you think that you have individually related explain those kind of scenarios or situations through programs, with schools and dealing with kids in the past?
Yeah, so you're right. People don't call the police for good news most of the time.
Mhm.
Right? They call the police or they need police help when something's going wrong or when, their life is array and they need someone to help them solve their problems. For kids, I try to impress upon them, especially, in my experiences in some of the programs that I help with, is that the world doesn't necessarily see them the way they see themselves, right?
Mhm.
So they have to think about perspective from another light that maybe they don't understand, right? So having a positive attitude and again thinking about the consequences and not being afraid to ask questions, right? Not being afraid to, you know, think about, well, how is this affecting me? And why do I need to do what you're saying I need to do? And
Mhm.
understanding that why, I think is something that really helps people to understand what's happening, because
Hmm.
if they don't understand why they have to do what we're telling them to do, then it's not meaningful.
Good answer. Good answer. Absolutely, very true. Absolutely. I know a couple of those programs have been wonderful, very educational, and they kind of bridge the gap on how maybe individuals within the law enforcement field saw things, and when the juvenile or the children may have seen things, and it bridges the gap, makes it like everyone has an aha moment, and during that aha moment you can ears open up and you can actually have those conversations,
Yeah.
and the part and having those conversations, do you think has anyone ever come up to you and asked what are the benefits of actually joining this occupation, like they were on the fence or they never thought about it before until they met you or someone like you, and now they're like, I want to be a police officer. What kind of advice would you give them?
Yeah, well, first of all, being blatantly honest with them and tell them it's hard.
Hmm.
It's not easy being a police officer. You really have to want to do it.
Hmm.
You're not going to get wealthy. You're not going to make money from being
Hmm.
a police officer. You got to work hard, and you have to do it for the right reasons, right? So
Hmm.
most of us that joined the profession did so because we want to help people, right? We want to do what's right. For me, I still, I'm very much engaged in law enforcement, and I still want to help people, right? I want
Hmm.
to help people understand uh, that things are not the way they used to be, and that we need to change the direction of law enforcement, right? And having those uncomfortable, difficult conversations is not easy, right? People don't want to hear about race all the time. They don't want to hear about diversity. They don't want to hear about culture all the time. But we really have to take a look at the profession from a global perspective and think about, where do we want our profession to go, right? How do we want our profession to evolve into something where young people do want to join and become police officers and be the changes that they want to see in their communities?
Right. I know. Good answer. Thank you, and thank you for sharing. I know through the course of experience, I held a town hall back in November, and I was actually shocked on some of the questions that came through, because they were very good questions. You could tell that there was a little bit of not knowing, for lack of a better term, on, and then being able to answer those questions in a knowing manner was wonderful. One of the questions that came up was about defunding the police department, defunding police officers, and that topic was very prevalent. It seems to have dwindled down a little bit so much now, but it's still a question. Can you provide any perspective or insight on that topic itself? Because I know that question came up at least 3 times during that town hall on defunding police departments.
Yeah, so I don't agree with defunding police. I think
Hmm.
quite the contrary. Police need more resources, and they need more funding to help implement programs to help them sustain the resources that police departments know that they need. Mental
Hmm.
health is a huge problem, right? That police officers are often dealt with dealing every day, right? And
Hmm.
I would venture to say more now than ever.
Hmm.
Throughout my career, yeah, I've seen it progress because of changes in socioeconomic status with people,
Hmm.
and just the lack of resources for people to get mental health services. So having some kind of nexus, some kind of resource for police officers that they could reach out to and give people the help that they need, having the police involved, I think, is needed, and that takes money, as
Hmm.
well as I'm very passionate about youth diversion programs. So having programs where police officers can reach out to the youth in the communities without having those kids enter the criminal justice system
Hmm.
is also something that requires funding, right? It requires support, it requires resources, training, right? Training. I don't want to point any fingers to any particular states or agencies, but
Hmm.
funding for police training was taken away as a cost saving measure years ago. in my opinion, that was a detriment. Police officers need more training. They need more communications training,
Mhm.
engagement training, leadership training. All those things that people assume are happening require money, right?
Mhm.
And that, I think, should be supported and not taken away.
I agree. Yes, you're right. It's very amazing how you say communications is a big deal. Because I say this often. The more the more experienced in this career that I get, the more I understand how important communication is. Because most times when you're dealing with people, they just want to be heard. They want to get their information out, and they want to be heard, and they want to have someone know they know that someone has listened to them, and they want it to have them explain what the next step of the process is in a way that they can understand it too. So articulation is a beautiful thing. Before you just when you start this career, you may not be as articulate, and you kind of get frustrated with the person who's already frustrated. It's like two bulls coming at each other. But once you learn how to, for lack of a better term, start to steer, corral the bull, and you can get him back in the stable, and you can articulate yourself in a situation a lot better, and it makes a smoother transition on both sides.
Exactly. And I would like to point out that women happen to
Mhm.
be good communicators, which is why we need more women in law enforcement, because women have that gift. I would say, of course, I'm biased because I'm a woman in law enforcement, and I feel that that is valuable and that that's something women can do. But there are studies that do
Mhm.
show that women are more empathetic, and they're able to listen and kind of understand perspectives in a way that's unique. So absolutely, I think communication is at the core of everything,
Mhm.
right? And there's all types of communications and communication skills that you need, from writing a report to how you talk to people
Mhm.
to listening, right? And all
Mhm.
that goes with communicating.
Absolutely. And you also mentioned on leadership skills. Leadership skills, is that a course that you taught as you were adjunct professor at any of the local colleges?
Yeah, so I teach organizational leadership
Hmm.
in a project management course, and I also teach leadership theory and leadership applications, and strategic planning for criminal justice professors. I mean, for criminal justice professionals.
Uh-huh.
So, yeah, leadership is highly needed, and it doesn't necessarily mean that everyone in a law enforcement position should be in a leadership position,
Hmm.
but understanding how leadership works, I think is beneficial. So, it can help with career progression, of course, to get
Hmm.
people where they should be. But it's also something that's worthy of just having a good tool in your toolbox.
Mm, exactly. And so I know, so not only are you a professor, I know you've actually wrote some policies, done read up on, so done some research on policies, and speak a couple languages. What all have you brought to the table throughout the course of your career that you would like to impart with us?
Oh boy. I would say a lot. I'm not very shy about speaking my mind, and I can't say that it's all been positive in
Hmm.
terms of me expressing what I felt was right and what needed to be done. I've been persistent in my endeavors to try to make change through policy, right, and through research and my education.
Hmm.
So those are things that people can't take away from me. And even though sometimes I felt minimized, and sometimes like I was not heard, or like concerns that I brought up weren't really addressed, I continued on. And I thought about all those people that I feel like I've helped over the years in being a police officer, and they're the reason why I continued on. Because if it wasn't for someone like me, that they could relate to, uh,
Hmm.
I I wouldn't it wouldn't have made me keep going, right? It was about helping those people that couldn't help themselves, and being that voice for those that couldn't speak up for themselves. So I felt, my of course, again, I'm biased. I feel like I brought a lot to the table, and I continue to do so, every day. One thing that I ask folks that I work with is, what can I do to make your life easier as a police officer? What can I do to help improve things so it's better, whether that's changing a policy or asking why. Why are you doing this every day? Like, why are you still using paper to do something where it could be digital, and kind of improving processes
Mhm.
and helping in making the profession better.
Gotcha, gotcha. And so, and that's, ladies and gentlemen, everyone who's watching, that's just like a tip of the iceberg on some of the things that she has done, or that she's willing to talk about too. She's done so much more. Trust me, she went through a whole spiel when we were in the back office, and it's amazing. And that was just at breakfast. That's all she got done. She accomplished from breakfast till right now. I mean, just imagine if she had a week to get this stuff done. She's not going to talk about all of it. Of course, I'm kind of putting her on the spot, but I mean, I'm very impressed, and it's very intriguing on how you keep climbing the mountain of the law enforcement career, trying to make changes, trying to make positive changes for not just not for a certain sector of people, but for everyone.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So, I'm staying engaged in community events, and doing things like trying to figure out how we can reduce the number of minority youth entering the criminal justice system
Hmm.
through policy, through legislative action, through supporting grants that can help programs for disproportionate minority contacts, and reducing racial and ethnic disparities, and training police officers. So something
Hmm.
else that a recent accomplishment is I worked with a small team to create a diversity training for the police academy that I was working with.
Okay.
So those are some recent things, as well as attending panel discussions,
Hmm.
active in Noble, the National
Hmm.
Organization of Black Law Enforcement Executives, and several other things, and just volunteering in the community. I'm grateful to. I'll give a little shout out to the Boys and Girls Club, who really helped define me in terms of my education, and providing support through mentoring. So I'm a huge fan of mentoring. I think mentoring is something that really helps people get through tough times,
Hmm.
through encouragement, through storytelling and accountability. Right, having someone there that could really support you, but also that you're accountable to, because you have to see that person at some point, or call them or text them, and they're going to say, hey, did you do this? And sharing your goals and your vision. So I got a lot of support from some folks there. They know who they are, and I'm very
Hmm.
grateful to them. I earned my doctorate degree while I was working patrol.
Hmm.
So that was hard, because I was still
Unbelievable.
going to work, it was in person. So I would like burn some of my vacation time so I can go to class, change in the car, have my Tupperware, my lunches with me. It was a struggle. It was a hustle. So, I'm grateful to the support network that I had. Shout out to all, like, my family members that really encouraged me, and helped me get to where I am today. So it takes a team. Really.
Hmm.
So everything that I've done, I've done with tremendous support.
There we go. And as Shayla chimes in, that's impressive. That is impressive. Thank you for sharing that as well. And as you were, and I don't want to just glide over that. I mean, I want to kind of dig into it a little further. But before we get there, you discuss mentoring, and that segues into my next question. As you were a mentor to someone else, as you were coming up, did you have any mentors yourself, as in parents, or did someone take you under their wing, or who influenced you to make you actually want to strive to be a better person?
Yeah. So I had a professor at Penn State when I earned my master's degree there, and she
Okay.
always told me, like, you're so much better than where you are, and
Hmm.
she told me that she saw the potential in me, and we stayed in touch. And over the years, she encouraged me to attend conferences so I could network with people.
Mhm,
Um, she kind of opened my eyes to other opportunities that I can consider to make
mhm,
changes in the things that I wanted done in law enforcement. And she just encouraged me to do more. And it was hard, because I didn't want to disappoint her, but at the
mhm.
same time, I knew that it was going to take a lot of work. It wasn't going to be easy to continue on with my education, and you know just keep going.
Gotcha, gotcha. And, getting your doctorate degree while on patrol, I mean, that itself should be, you could write a book on that. Taking using vacation time, eating in the car, changing in the car, and still going in person. I mean, I know you say it's hard, and we can all believe and imagine that it's hard, but can you give us any certain situations or certain scenarios on where it's like it just seemed like it was forever, or it seemed like it was never going to be accomplished, but you made it over that mountain?
Oh, absolutely. Well, I mean, even before that, like I could remember, it was a cohort type of setting. So we had like groups, and we were assigned to like different groups for different work and project and stuff like that.
Mhm.
So my kids were, well, my one son was born in the break between classes, like between the first semester and like the beginning of the next semester. So I literally had a newborn that was like 3 weeks old, and I would bring him and my other son, who was 2 at the time, to the computer lab. So I would have my baby car seat on the counter, and then I'd have the other one. I'd log him into a computer, and he was sitting there. My cohort mates were just terrific. Like they just really helped me and encouraged me,
Mhm.
and they didn't mind the noise and my kids playing. So something that I always tell, especially any women in having conversations, is don't apologize for your kids. Like
Mhm.
sometimes you'll be on calls and they'll be like, "Oh, that's my son," or "I'm sorry, I got to do this because of my kid." I tell them, don't apologize. Don't ever apologize for your kids. Like be proud,
Mhm.
and you're a mom. You're responsible, and you have to do what you have to do. And family always comes first, last, and always. So
Mhm.
that's something that I always kept in my mind. And in writing my dissertation and doing my research, there were times when I just wanted to give up, when I was just like, this is too much, because my kids would I had to wait till my kids went to sleep, right? So I'd put them to bed 8, 9 o'clock at night, and then I'd stay up till midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, writing, researching, and
Wow.
doing my work. So it was hard. And then to have to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, so not having much sleep.
Mhm.
Very grateful for coffee. I won't promote any brands, but a lot of good coffee, and the people at the coffee shop knew my order. So yes, but it was not easy, and there were times when I just was at my wit's end.
I can imagine. So looking back at all of that, would you do it all over again? Do you think it makes a tremendous difference?
Absolutely, because I wouldn't be here, maybe talking to you and encouraging others and having some of the opportunities that I had today. I would have maybe done it a little bit smarter and had maybe some more support in trying to get through, because 5, 6 years without a vacation was tough. I didn't take many breaks, so
Wow.
that part of it was hard. So that's
Mhm.
that's the only thing I would change, is I would have taken like more breaks, more time with my family to kind of reset, instead of just trying to push through.
Instead of go, go, go. Understand. And so now at the level that you're at, I know you offer some consulting, not to put any agency or any person out there, but what kind of consulting do you actually physically do?
Yeah, so the consulting projects that I've worked on so far have been, first, to do a program evaluation of an organization. So just going in and seeing the current status of what they're doing. So reading their policies, looking at their daily practices and how they engage with their constituents. And then I go in and I do interviews with all the people that are at the organization
Okay.
to understand what are some of the issues that they would like addressed, and how can we have some support from them to make those changes.
Hmm.
Something that I've seen with some consulting businesses is they try to have like a one size fits all approach,
Hmm.
where we're unique. We work with them to help us work through those changes, so they're part of it throughout the process, because sometimes things look and sound good on paper, and I may
Hmm.
come up with an amazing plan, but it may not work for them for a variety of reasons. And having them involved really has been helpful. And I don't want to name some of my clients, but some pretty large scale organizations with some like school districts, security, and law enforcement agencies, where we redid their policies on engagement with youth and
Hmm.
their strategies for strategic planning, and how they wanted to make some changes, and then training to supplement and support those changes, because a plan is only as good as the implementation that follows, right? Because you can
Right.
have a plan, it's going to look beautiful on your shelf, but what are you doing with it, or in your computer files?
Hmm.
So giving them the support for the training so they can continue on and then make tweaks as you go along, is really like the whole package.
Gotcha. So, with the climate of the world today, it's relatively extremely high, extremely low. Most of it's viewed negatively on both ends. What do you think? Do you think a lot of policies need to be updated now for different agencies or departments throughout the nation, or anything like that? Or do you think more training should be implemented? Or do you think actually maybe both?
Yeah, I think both. I think we need a paradigm shift in policing culture. A lot of times, people don't understand all of the things that police officers have to deal with. So,
Hmm.
and it's not all action and the typical shows that you see on TV. I
Right.
won't name them all, but it's not always all that fun and all that stuff that happens and all exciting things.
Glamorous
And
stuff. Yeah.
yeah, we have to be realistic about what police officers do. And
Hmm.
we also have to look at what can we do to better educate our uh, departments and the officers that are there, and then leadership. I'm again a huge advocate of leadership. There's
Hmm.
some departments where maybe people are put in positions that they shouldn't be in, or they're
Hmm.
making decisions that they shouldn't be making. And we have to find those opportunities for better leadership throughout law enforcement, because sometimes things happen that people don't want to talk about, right? Again, those difficult conversations, and we have to be honest about that and hold them accountable. I've always said accountability is missing. We don't really talk about, well, what are the consequences? Who's actually looking at those agencies and those leaders to say, hey, what are you doing?
Hmm.
How are you doing this? And let me see what's happening at the department, because at the end of the day, all police departments, they work for the community, right? So
Hmm.
the community, I think, should have more of an accountability stance to know what's happening at the departments, what those leaders are doing, how they're doing it, and have some kind of metric, some kind of measure, so we can have an opportunity to look closely at that.
Okay. And do you feel that a lot of departments don't have that, as far as maybe they have a community board, or I don't a peer liaison, or just someone who evaluates who's not actually a law enforcement profession?
No, I think that's missing in a lot of departments. And it's not really like an I gotcha moment. Like I'm not saying
Hmm.
that there should be like a community board to say, hey, show me your reports and let me see this. Is this wall clean? And well, no, there's dust here. Who
Hmm.
did this? And it should be an organic type of conversation to just kind of get a sense of what's happening, and having an outlet within police departments. Sometimes officers don't feel like they can communicate if something's going on, right? Those red flags and those things that may be happening aren't always reported. And it might take years before anybody really knows of any systemic problems because of that blue line, right? That we all cherish. So it doesn't happen everywhere, but if it
Hmm.
happens once, that's too many.
Okay. All right. And then the course of your career, have you met any frustrations that you could share with us, whether it's on, whether dealing with the public, whether it's patrol, whether it's any kind of just career development or anything like that? Are there any frustrations? And there'll be a flip side to that question as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So I won't get personal about some of the frustrations that I've experienced, but
Mhm.
um, yeah, there's times when I felt like people could do better, right? And some of the decisions that were made um, in terms of within a particular agency could have been better. And there's people that know what's happening, and whenever those issues were communicated, they weren't dealt with the way that they should have been dealt with. So that's frustrating, because sometimes I felt like I didn't have a resource or a guide to really express some of the issues that I saw were happening. And I felt powerless, like I really couldn't do much to change those circumstances, even though I knew that there were some things going on that shouldn't have been doing. In terms of the community and the public, sometimes it was frustrating to try to convince people that I wasn't the bad guy or gal, that I
Mhm.
was really trying to help them out and that I was really trying to do something that was helping them and that was going to be beneficial for them. And I I can't blame some people for being angry or jaded or having a distorted view of what law enforcement is, because in my heart I know who I am, right?
Mhm.
And I try to convey that through my actions. But there's some people who really have been hurt for a variety of reasons, and I just did my best to try to communicate what I could to make the situation as amicable as possible.
Gotcha, gotcha. And so the flip side of that question is I always like to ask the harder question first because this question may be a little easier. Are there any positive takeaways, any positive experiences, anything that you could share with us that you felt was like a huge game changer?
Oh, absolutely. So I would say one of my biggest accomplishments was developing the youth and law enforcement forums at my previous agencies, where I got some great feedback.
Okay.
We had a day. The way the forums went was it was a whole engaging day where we started off with like a motivational speaker
Hmm.
talking about relationships with police and youth and why it was important, and just kind of getting everybody to think about decision makings and different scenarios where they may have encountered police. Then I had the kids, and these were kids from middle schoolers all the way through high schoolers at different days and times. And then we had them experience a traffic stop. So walking them through it and not just talking about it, but we had a car set up. We had officers out there and we had the kids out there. And then I would have them flip and role play. So the kids could see what it's like to sit in a police car and they
Hmm.
could understand the view literally from the police officer's side. And then we had fun with it. The kids would get engaged, and we'd have them play around and kind of walk through the scenario and make sure that they kind of understood what the purpose and the goal was, which was to just kind of see each other's points of view.
Hmm.
And we had other scenarios set up, but that's just one example throughout the day. And we would have them kind of rotate round robin, and we just try to make it a fun day, a fun
Hmm.
engagement day, so engaging day. So I was very proud of that. And, there was even some officers who they would sign up for whatever reason, or some of them were forced to go and they'd be like, oh, well, I'm gonna do this because, but I don't really like it. At the end of the day, they're like, when's the next one? Like, I had
Uh-huh.
so much fun, and they had a great time. And it was a lot of work to plan those events. And people be like, oh, you gonna do another one in a month or two? And I'd be like, oh my gosh, it's like planning a wedding. Like, it was hard work. So I get very excited in talking about those events, and I got a lot of great support and a lot of great feedback. So I thought that was one of my biggest um, accomplishments and events that I worked on while I was a police officer.
Nice, nice. Thank you for sharing. I know you're very proud of that. That is very, as you should be as well. To kind of change gears a little bit, to kind of keep the conversation going. Let me ask you another question here, and it doesn't have to specifically be a law enforcement style answer, but who has you talked about who was a mentor for you? You talked about who has inspired you, but who's actually been your hero? Who I know, other than the college professor that you talked about, has there any been one who's been a hero that you look up to, that you want to emulate, that you've modeled yourself after?
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't say that I modeled myself after her
Mhm.
specifically, but I would say, of course, Michelle Obama. I read her book and I
Okay.
just felt like I could relate to some of the issues that she shared in,
Mhm.
working her way through her career and not being taken seriously sometimes, and, being not just a model, but and just an amazing human being all the way up through her experiences and making it to the White House. I mean, that's definitely the Cinderella story, right? So
Mhm.
I see a lot of similarities. And it really wasn't until I read the book that
Mhm.
I really kind of understood and just saw a lot of things that I saw in me. And it kind of motivates me to continue on and not to just settle, even though I feel like I've done a lot. I don't feel like I've settled at this point, but I feel
Mhm.
like I'm still young, but still a lot to do and a lot to gain from looking at what Michelle Obama has accomplished.
Okay. All right. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing. And I'm going to ask, through the course of the conversation, we've had a wonderful conversation. I've learned a lot about you. I knew a lot about you. I learned a lot, so much more about you. And I know that you're very excited in the role that you're in. I know that you're very excited to make a positive difference for and leave a legacy behind for the generation that's coming behind to make the world a better place for everyone. Um, you've done forums, you've done leadership, you actually you're a linguist as well. You didn't touch on that. uh I know you've taught that in colleges. I know you taught leadership and at the various colleges as well, so I know that you got your feet wet for so long and for so many years. Through the course of conversation, did I forget to touch on anything, or is there anything that you would like to share or highlight?
Yeah, so we didn't really talk much about my background in terms of where I'm from. So I'm originally from the Dominican Republic, Quisqueya La
Okay.
Bella. So I'm Dominican. I speak Spanish fluently. So you mentioned me being a linguist, and I did teach Spanish for law enforcement.
Hmm.
I'm very proud to be an Afro Latina. So that's something that really has influenced, I think, some of my developments over the years and growing up in the Latin culture and
Hmm.
really having that nurturing from my Latin family. So that's something I'm very proud of. And you don't often see Latinas in these types of roles, really talking about all of the experiences. So I would just encourage any woman of color to really be proud of their culture and their background, and really look at how those experiences can really help shape what type of leader or just person you are in general, and how it can help you in developing in your career.
Nice. You're right. We didn't talk about your background. I knew that, and I assumed that. That's my fault. I'm sorry. We should have dug a little deeper, but I thank you for sharing that as well, because I feel it's important to understand who's on the platform, to understand their background. A lot of times, people see and as black and blue, period, and think that we're standard, we're a carbon copy of each other, we're one or type model, and that is us. They don't understand the human part of us as well. They don't understand the background part of us as well. The struggles that may have gone through while growing up, or some of the positive influences that we had while growing up to help mold us into the persons that we are today. Where, like you stated earlier in the interview, to actually want to get in law enforcement, you're not going to get wealthy. It's something that you're going to have to want to do, because it is hard work. You do have to be of service to other people. You're going to be what you have to be willing to put yourself out there and put yourself on the line, because for certain situations and certain incidents, that when you respond, it's just you for maybe even the entire length of the call, the situation, or just the beginning. You might be the first officer on scene, and you got to get a whole group of people to the other side of the road so you can direct whatever's going on at this situation, at this intersection, for whatever reason.
That's exactly right. And that's where all of those skills that we talked about, that, I see a need for it in law enforcement, those leadership skills, right? You get to the scene, you're the incident commander, right? No matter how big or small the incident is, you're the first one on scene. You have to take charge of that situation. So you
Mm-hmm.
have to get people to listen to you. You have to figure out how to be safe and not get killed, so you can go home at the end of the day. And that's not something that people really see every day. No matter what type of call it is, you never know what's going to happen when you get there. And putting yourself at risk as a police officer every day, every call you go to, is not something that should be taken lightly. So that's why having a variety of all of those resources, the leadership training, the communication training, and the ability to get to know people a little bit more, so you can engage and have that confidence to help you through those situations, really is something that's should be valued for all law enforcement.
Absolutely. Very well said. Very well said. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, not before we wrap up, I got a video that I was supposed to show at the beginning and I forgot to do it during the intro. So I'm going to show it now. And then after we complete the video, if we have any questions, comments, or anything else before we wrap up, we'll get to that. So stand by. And 4 over and out. All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I hope you guys enjoyed that. I'm sorry I played that at the end. I was supposed to have been played at the beginning. But again, like I said, this is the transition from the lab to black and blue. I hope you guys learned a lot. I hope you guys enjoyed yourself. I hope you guys, if you have any questions, make sure that you tag, like, and share. Ask your questions in the comment section during the replay. Like I said before, this is on Facebook under Black and Blue. It's on LinkedIn. It's on YouTube under Black and Blue too. So make sure you tag, like, share, and subscribe to those pages. What did you think of the video?
I love it. I love it. I was over here jamming.
I saw you. Perfect. I know I asked you before, and you wrapped up nicely. Any final thoughts before we close out?
No, thank you for finally inviting me on the show. You know, I've been asking for a long time, so I'm so delighted to finally be here. I hope
we can't put that out there publicly because that's not true. She was invited on the show back in the lab before. It wasn't last year. I think it was a year before, and I got stymied because I'm not up here with the upper echelon of a lot of other panelists and podcasts and other things, but I'm working my way up. You got to understand. So I knew that other podcasts or panels or any kind of discussion groups kind of had the forefront before I was even looked at with a microscope.
I know not of what you're speaking, Coach, but I'm happy to be here. Thank you so much for addressing this very important topic. I'd love to come back to the show to talk about other things. And right, Shayla? Yeah, it's about time. Thank you so much. And I look forward to more insightful conversations. And, I really enjoy talking about these topics because you don't hear a lot of discussion. And sometimes people are kind of shy about talking about these things. So please continue to do what you do so we can continue to shed light on these topics. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Dr. Francia Done-Henry, for making yourself available. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for watching. I want everyone to be safe and have a good night, and stay tuned for the next show. All right. Thank you guys for tuning in. Have a good night. Peace.
Good night.